Dutch van der Linde's conflict with Leviticus Cornwall in Red Dead Redemption 2 is the clearest illustration of the game's central argument. The Outlaw Age didn't end because of morality or law, but because industrial power made men like Dutch obsolete. This isn't a personal feud born from insult or betrayal. It's a collision between two worldviews that cannot coexist, and Dutch never truly understands how badly he's already lost. Leviticus Cornwall is not a lawman, and he's not a criminal in the traditional sense. He is capital. Railroads, oil, factories, private security, and political influence all flow through him. When Dutch robs Cornwall's train early in the story, he treats it like a symbolic victory, stealing from a rich tyrant to fund freedom. What he doesn't grasp is that Cornwall doesn't experience robbery as defeat. For men like Cornwall, loss is temporary, and retaliation is systematic. Cornwall's response is immediate and impersonal. He hires the Pinkerton Detective Agency, not to negotiate or intimidate, but to erase the problem entirely. This marks a shift in the game's tone. Until Cornwall, the gang is fighting sheriffs, rival outlaws, and local authority. Cornwall introduces something far more dangerous, a man who can weaponize the law, the economy, and private violence all at once. Dutch still believes charisma and planning can outmaneuver that kind of power. They can't. Every subsequent encounter between Dutch and Cornwall escalates the imbalance. Dutch frames Cornwall as a villain oppressing workers and the poor, but Cornwall never engages with Dutch on ideological terms. He doesn't debate freedom or fairness, he simply applies pressure. Camps are discovered faster, safe havens disappear, resources dry up. Dutch interprets this as persecution. In reality, it's containment. The confrontation in Valentine is especially revealing. When Cornwall confronts the gang in public, flanked by armed guards, he doesn't threaten them, he informs them. He makes it clear that their resistance is inconvenient, not dangerous. Dutch responds with violence, killing Cornwall in cold blood. To Dutch, this feels like a triumph, a revolutionary act against tyranny. But narratively, it's the moment he seals the gang's fate. Cornwall's death doesn't weaken the system he represents. It strengthens it. The Pinkertons intensify their pursuit, now fully legitimized by the murder of a powerful industrialist. Dutch believes he's struck a blow against civilization. In reality, he's removed the last chance of being ignored. From this point forward, the gang is no longer a nuisance. They are a priority. What makes this conflict tragic is that Cornwall never needs to change tactics. Dutch does all the work for him. By escalating violence, rejecting compromise, and refusing to adapt, Dutch validates every justification used to destroy outlaws. Cornwall doesn't defeat Dutch through superior morality or bravery. He defeats him through infrastructure, bureaucracy, and scale. Dutch fights like it's still the frontier. Cornwall fights like it's the modern world. Arthur sees this long before Dutch does. Arthur understands that killing Cornwall doesn't stop the trains, the oil fields, or the Pinkertons. It only proves how outmatched they are. Dutch, however, clings to the fantasy that removing the man removes the problem. This inability to distinguish between symbols and systems is Dutch's fatal flaw. In the end, Leviticus Cornwall doesn't need to survive to win. His world does. Railroads expand, industry grows, and private enforcement replaces personal justice. Dutch's dream of freedom collapses not because it's wrong, but because it's outdated. Cornwall represents the future. Cold, efficient, and unstoppable. And Dutch, for all his fire and conviction, never truly stands a chance against something that doesn't care what he believes. And that's the final irony of their conflict. Dutch spends the entire game railing against men like Cornwall, believing they've stolen freedom from people like him. But Cornwall doesn't steal freedom. He redefines power so completely that freedom becomes irrelevant. By the time Dutch realizes this, it's far too late. Every plan becomes louder, bloodier, and more desperate, because Dutch is no longer fighting to win. He's fighting to prove that he still matters in a world that has already moved on without him. Beyond the immediate conflicts over trains and shipments, Dutch's feud with Cornwall also symbolizes the broader struggle between the fading outlaw era and the rise of industrial capitalism. Cornwall's relentless pursuit of profit